Welcome back, Mere Mortalites, to another edition of the Mere Mortals podcast. We got Meanderings. We're outside. We're philosophizing in the park. You've got one on the one mic.
Kyron here on the other side.
And once again, Meanderings is a chance for us to have a conversation about what's been going on in our lives, in our minds, in our thoughts, ideas, learnings, failures, things we want to share. And also we get to ask potentially questions to you back, Mere Mortalites, as well. I'm going to get, as always, straight into it. Get stuck into it. First of all, actually, I wanted to call out a few things. One that you mentioned to me this morning, which was the page where we share the Satoshis, or at least incoming Satoshis on a, I guess, monthly basis, we're going to say from right now, and probably where we're going to build out, you know, the people who are supporting us and how we're going to be giving back. And we've got some ideas on what the next stage or the next evolution of the like level 2 version 2 be immortalized and all these sort of things. So I'm
going to use any benefits that we get to buy a screwdriver to fix up this camera stand, which I'm trying to
fix it on the fly.
Rejig with some wood in my hand.
What's the saying? It's like we're fixing the plane as we're flying it. But what were the thoughts that Cridland was talking about just in relation to it? I just wanted to probably expand on it here in the podcast.
Yeah, so he was just enjoying the small concept. Like I think he's a pretty visual sort of guy. He does a lot of things with websites, and you know his own website is pretty much self-created and things like that. And he also enjoys coding and being able to automate things. So he was saying, I like the visual impact of like the leaderboard type of thing. And then was asking me some questions around how he could potentially code it, for example. So what sort of data we were getting in. I was saying we're using Satoshi Stream, so it's an Excel sheet, just spit out all the stuff. Definitely codable, definitely automatable, but are we going to do that at this stage?
And that's why I wanted to hear it, because one of the points I actually was talking to my dad, and for those who don't know, Dad's used to be software engineer, I guess still software engineer, and I talked to him. We had like a 1 hour Zoom call on this around potentially automating it, not just like doing it by manual, but you know, could we work through an automating? And he had a bit of a view on it that it would actually become probably more problematic than it wouldn't if we went down the automatic path. Like it would be a lot of work to upkeep it, to make sure it's right, especially with names, like the fact that names come in and they don't mix match, so we have to do some merging. So yes, James, if you listen to this, there was a slight deviation from going from automated to at least now for manual. However, what you call out there about the visualization, I had an idea of the next level, the next path of where it could go.
Okay.
And my thought was, next to the top 4 ranking, and you can see the big list down the list, I was actually going to split the website a little bit at the top area so that it could be seen as a graphical view of almost like where, you know, over time, where are they up to in comparison. Cool. So
sort of like
I will need a couple of snapshots in time. So, you know, you won't see this Mere Mortalites in 1 month or 2 months. You'll see it in 5 months, 6 months. But as I get pinpoints on time, I'll be able to, from an image perspective, graph, you know, where they've been, how they've been scaling up. That way, I guess, you know, you at home can actually see our growth from that perspective, and we can see the growth as well, whether it's stalling, whether it's increasing, and the like. So I'm going to go down that path.
Yeah,
so
cool.
That's a 1 point. You got a thought?
We just got to hope that Petar doesn't take too big of a lead, because today on the Podcasting 2.0, he boosted 5 million sats. In a live boost. It just boom, smashed all, like almost wrecked all of their lightning channels and things like that.
Whoa.
So for those who are wondering, at this time it's, I believe, just over $1,000 US dollars. And he's
why did he do that in particular?
I think he had a big message attached to it, which was along the lines of got to watch out for people coming into the, because it is starting to gain traction, the podcasting 2.0 in many ways. So you can, if you look at Fountain, for example, I've seen it explode over the last probably week or two with, you being able to earn sats while you're doing it. You know, the incentive structures are there that people are wanting to share. For example, like I hooked you up properly for the first time to the Fountain app just the other day, and I'll probably do that with some more friends as well. And it was sort of just saying got to be careful of, I think it's mostly just because he's a really awesome guy, and he's everywhere, man. When I'm doing this value for value podcast,
you hear him all over the place.
Yeah, he's already been there. It's like what was that? Kilroy was here. Do you remember that?
Oh yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
So that little face peering over a wall type thing. and which was just, it was like a fad of, I think, the early 2000s maybe, and it was just appearing. People would just take photos of, like, look, it's here as well. Kilroy was here. And it's sort of, Peter's sort of like that. You know?
He's sort of like
that. And actually, you're always 2 steps behind him.
Yeah, I guess that gets me to, again, coming back to some philosophy here, because I know Peter specifically does like some of this stuff. Where, not even in my notes, but it just popped in my mind, where often the people who are either the early stage participants, perhaps who have, won in the space, or at least you're just early so you know what's going on and you understand it, there's a bit of a responsibility, I think, that falls in line with what you are doing and also how you bring other people into the space. So here at the Me Mortals, we have talked at least 200 episodes, I reckon, where we have said, hey, if you want to join, if you want to boost us, if you want to do this, that, at least 200. You don't reckon?
No.
Across value for value, across book reviews?
100 maybe, because we're up to 300, low 300s now. Mm-hmm. The first time we talked about it was probably early 200s, maybe late 190s.
Okay, so let's say 150. Let's say...
definitely 100.
Okay, enough time. We have said it enough times. And it still strikes me that it's almost like we're not still doing enough. So we're not people who are really early in the space, folks. So it's not like... in my mind, it feels like we're past the early space, but when I talk to other people, it still feels like, okay, this is still relatively early.
Yeah.
And I think there's a responsibility, not just in what we're talking about right now with boostergramming and other things, but just in other spaces, whether it's new frontiers, you have an imbued responsibility to make sure people are, if you need to onboard people in a good, healthy way, that you actually make the change that you actually want to see. So I think often I've fallen myself in the back burner of, okay, well we'll just talk about it. Like we'll just share it with you, me and Mortalites, and say, hey, if you want to support us, Bootstrap is how you do it. But still not enough. Like it's still not enough of a push to get people on, like some of our friends or anything like that.
For sure. There's been a bit of discussion recently in terms of fees, for example. So now that things are starting to catch on a little bit, now that more people are joining, I and some other people do not like the word space, but joining the community, I'll use that, or joining the model, perhaps. Joining the philosophy is probably even a better term.
That's probably a better term.
There is some questions related to fees, for example, and cuts. So, what I'm doing on the Value for Value show, for example, is each of the podcasts that I'm evaluating, saying like, this is what they're doing great for, their sort of value for value implementation, their way of doing it. This is maybe a way they're doing it a little bit wrong. Have you listened to the latest one that I've put
I have not listened to the latest one.
I'll give you a little sneak peek. So Peter sent this dude his first boostergram, and Peter works in the energy sector. So he's very knowledgeable on things related to, I believe the Claude Yu was talking about that Texas winter thing that happened where they were out without power for 5 days, something like that. And Peter sent a message just saying like, hey, I hate to tell you this, but basically you got all these facts wrong. This is why, etc., etc. And the guy read out the first boostergram in this. I just have to tell you, this is what you got wrong. And then he was reading out in this like, making fun of him voice, and I just went, dang, dude, that's your first boostergram, and you're like
you're already like hitting on
risky move right there. But where was I going with it? Okay, so splits. So I've included Claude Yu in the split. For example,
value split.
I just do 20%. I like that number. I just put them in.
Yeah.
Just a number that I came up with. Now the podcast index takes 1%, and typically the apps take 3 to 5% as well. Now I've been saying a lot in the past, like middlemen. Like, fuck the middleman. This is why it's awesome to come over to podcasting 2.0, like, because everyone who's here sort of, they're earning it in a way. They're deserving of it. But when I really think about it, when I get down to it, it's like, okay, look, there's not enough of a distinction between Patreon, who take 30%, and the Fountain app. Now, I would argue the Fountain app is bringing more value. It's sort of... It in itself is something that you would want to use, whereas the Patreon thing, it's like you kind of have to use it. There's nothing incentivizing about listening, because you can't listen to a podcast on Patreon. It's not designed for podcasting, whereas Oscar's app is designed for it. But it's it's kind of a subtle difference. So instead of saying middlemen, I need to like use my wording a bit more carefully and say perhaps unnecessary middlemen or non-value adding middlemen, something like that.
Let's remove even the conversation of just remove the word middleman out of that, and I would explain it, or try to explain it as Spotify with music artists. They might take a 70% of the cut. And now, don't think about middlemen. Let's just say that's the platform.
I think it's more than that.
They're more. Yeah. Let's say, 70 plus. So let's just say that they're the value platform that is utilized so that you can share, and they take 70%. Where the comparison is, say something like Fountain, where they take 3 to 4%, and they might actually be giving you more value as a listener, as a user of the platform, or as an artist, either way. And so the comparison is, you could technically, and I think in definition, probably both are middlemen, right? Just in different systems and different platforms. But one's asking for 70+% and giving you less value, however, perhaps maybe better operability and sustainability to it. And another one that's a little bit newer, but with 3%. So, it still has a long way to... We're not saying here, I'm not saying Fountain is better than Spotify, in the sense that...
I am.
Like, if you removed advertising from Spotify, I think that the operability of Spotify is far and above
It's pretty
Fountain.
seamless, yeah.
There are some features that are different in Fountain, which make it better.
Yeah.
There's literally nothing stopping Spotify from doing that, but they're a big thing, so they're going to move slower. That's fine. But at some point, there's going to come a tipping balance where perhaps Fountain is going to be better. And then the conversation is, well, at 3% versus 70% value, okay, it seems like overwhelmingly, why wouldn't you be operating in this space?
Yeah, I think if you get to the heart of it, it's sort of the showing it right in your face. So when you use Spotify, you don't ever feel like you're paying. I get this free service. This is awesome. But you are paying. You're paying with your data. You're paying with your eyes on advertising. So you are paying with your almost like with your consciousness in a way.
Have all of the Podcast 2.0 app podcast players, is that confirmed that they don't sell any data? They don't on-sell any data?
Look, you'd have to talk to them individually, but I would imagine that the type of people who are getting attracted to here all of them would be not doing it, but I can't 100% confirm that.
Because I guess for the mere models, to give you an idea, normally the reason the data is obtained from individuals or from users is so they can be on-sold to advertisers or people who want to advertise for a specific space. So think about Facebook. Their massive amount of revenue is because we share data with them. They can sell that in a packaged way to people who want to advertise to you. As in, if you've never tried to do like a Facebook post, which advertising, which we have, you get the input. I want to target 24 to 45-year-olds who like to train, who live in this area. So that's data that they're packaging up to redisplay to you, and that's where they make their money. That's like a primal way that they make all their money. Where
we tried that once, by the way. I'm never doing that again.
It's just annoying. I could see myself doing it again if I was doing like an e-com platform or something like that, because you could work out the numbers. But for trying to get eyeballs and like interaction, it was just pretty shit.
Yeah, I would.
But I guess what I'm saying is for say Fountain, right? There's no ads. They're not on-selling any advertisements to people. So there's no incentive for them to be like, oh, I want to pick up your data and try to sell it, because they don't have that. That's not the model. The model is they make money as long as you're making money.
Yeah, it's this, it's this kind of weird grey area where it's, I feel there's a difference, and I feel it's a big philosophical difference and incentive difference, like it actually matters. But if you look right now on the Fountain homepage, you'll see there's promoted podcast. Now what happens there is, instead of you promoting your podcast and it going directly to Oscar, for example, you put in a bunch of Satoshis, let's just say 100,000, and for everyone who listens, they will earn it. So you actually earn to see the ad, sort of like the Brave token. If you imagine that, if you use the Brave browser, you can earn every time you see an ad. If you leave them on, you get to earn these Brave tokens, and that sort of is
some form of currency that you can exchange.
Yeah. So it's a similar sort of thing. Like if you were just looking on it on the surface, you'd maybe look at, oh, there's promoted podcasts on Fountain. How is that any different than promoted podcasts on Spotify? I would argue there's a difference there, but man, it's in those nuances and that takes time, and you really do have to research it and explain it more. I probably will try out that Fountain thing, even though I detest advertising.
The promoting thing?
Yeah, I detest advertising. I think there is you could maybe even call that a different word, because I'm not it's I suppose it's like me promoting the show, but I don't feel like I'm doing it in the gross way that's kind of you can see with other platforms. It's hard, man. I need to think about this more. I definitely need to get my brain around it, the differences, how to explain it in a sort of short, snappy way, and then even on a longer form discussion as well.
Absolutely, and I think this comes back down to, again, the difficulty that therein lies that we are in the space now for a little while, and more so than in the philosophy of what we're trying to do. But to like,
you can keep using space, man.
Even us, we struggle still to kind of describe, why is that advertising model better, if you want to call it advertising. And so if we're finding it difficult, you better believe that people who are listening to us, even right now, go like, I have not...
Just confused as fuck,
super confused. So going back to the original point, I've made a decision that I'm going to try and onboard people into just Web3, I'm going to call it in general, through NFTs, in the hope that they get a digital wallet, and in the path of getting a digital wallet, they have the availability to get themselves other cryptocurrency, which then they can, in turn, support us back. So, and it seems like the most accessible way. Like, I almost find easier now to try and get someone onboarded through an NFT than with just like a random cryptocurrency. I don't know why, almost to the point of like, is it an investment level?
Have you...
Maybe not.
Have you managed to do that many times? Like, have you...
No, not at all. So that's why I was like beginning now, where I'm going to go, okay, I've picked out a couple of like significant people that I'm like, okay.
Once you've actually done that, then say that it's easy. It sort of sounded like you'd already done it and it was the easiest.
Sorry. What I mean by that is I'm going to handhold that whole interaction, and it goes back to my original point of I've got to... you're kind of responsible in the space if you're the first one playing in the space to really almost handhold people and be like, okay, let me show you exactly how to get on so that you can in turn support us if you want to support us,
Yeah.
So that sort of level, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let's get on to maybe a different topic. It's just a random observation I had the other day. I just realized that the Nigerian Prince scammers, those emails from back in the day. Did you ever get one? Did you ever personally get one?
I think one.
Okay, I'm not sure I ever did get one. I always... I just realized, I always assume it was actual Nigerians doing that. But they just weren't princes, and they were lying about it. And then, just upon reflection, I'm like... There's no way there was Nigerians doing that. It was just random people from anywhere in the globe. I don't know why I found that so funny, but I was just like, wow, how have I gone my whole life just assuming that
there's a documentary.
Goddamn Nigerians.
There's an actual documentary about that.
Yeah, okay.
Showcasing, and I haven't watched it in full.
Who can I blame?
No, there weren't Nigerians.
It was actually Nigerians.
At least the documentary was Nigerians pretending to be Nigerian princes, and how the whole premise of it was how they were doing it and they were just making enough to live, and that's how they actually kept the family alive was through these scams. So it was a slight like philosophical conversation, being like, that's their job.
Yeah,
that was the job, and that's how they kept themselves.
That's like the phone farming. You've seen that sort of stuff where it's people they've got a huge,
like 1,000 phones.
And they just clicking things, doing stuff on them for each of them, and to sort of prove they're a real human, or at least doing they've maybe got bots set up, and how you have the human capture. You need to click these 5 letters to prove you're a human, and they're just doing that constantly all day, and then letting the bot run in the background, perhaps. So it was actually there was some Nigerians at least.
Maybe some of them wouldn't be Nigerians, but I know there's a documentary specifically on Nigerians doing the Nigerian Prince scam.
There you go.
I don't know if I'd recommend it, because I obviously don't remember much of it, but I also didn't fully watch it. So go check it out. Go see if that's in your alley.
Yeah, okay. There you go. All right, here's a more philosophical one. So I was thinking over some other sort of like moral and mental beliefs that I hold.
And mental beliefs.
Yeah, and I came to the conclusion that many of them are ingrained now, and that I've forgotten the nuances that made me come to my conclusion. So you could, perfect example, my detestation of the standard advertising model. It's hard for me if you put me on the spot to list. I could have a fair go at it, but it's not going to be a well-constructed argument. There's going to be plenty of flaws in it. There's going to be things where you'll go down a certain route or come up with a certain objection to it, and I know it's wrong. I know why that's a bad model or why I dislike it, but it's ingrained now. It's almost like I've done the work to figure out why I don't like it, and then I've forgotten it. Sort of like engineering. I did all the work to prove that I was competent as an engineer, and then basically as soon as I went out of uni, I forgot all of it, because it was just not useful to my day-to-day life.
Although in a weird way, actually, just a small quote on the engineering piece, I was actually driving back here and I saw like a building, and someone asked me whether, because I made a quote being like, oh, I wonder if that's apartment or if it's a complex, like a shopping complex. And they said, oh, you're an engineer, you should actually know. And then after thinking for 20 seconds, I actually realized that I could figure out whether it was or not because of the core of where the elevators were. And I went, oh, yeah, actually, I can tell you that that's a complex for shopping, not for like apartments. And I was like, oh, so that's it's like in there somewhere, but it's not like you're actively thinking about it. But perhaps if you really, really think about it, you probably come up as to why the morality is there.
Yeah. If I had a long enough, an hour to sit down with a pencil and paper. So some other examples on this, my position on free will, for example, my aversion to day trading, the even belief in why BTCs are money in some ways, and there's a whole list going on. And then I was thinking, okay, should one be able to convincingly, is there a barrier that I need to be able to have a convincing argument, assuming the other person's arguing in good faith, like they're genuinely trying to figure out why I believe what I believe? How important is it to be able to do that on the spot, for example, and to be able to just come up with a decent enough argument that maybe it's not going to convince their minds, I'm not in that sort of game in anything. Like, I don't care what other people. I don't have any desire to change other people's opinions on many things. But should there at least be enough in there so I don't come across as a fool just saying, because there has been times where people have asked me why I believe something and it's deeply held, and I've done the work to figure out why I hold it deeply, but in the moment I just can't come up with it. I just come across looking like I don't know what I'm talking about, sort of thing.
I would go down the path of, you should be able to very succinctly, very strongly lay out an opinion that you have, especially one that's deep. I think that it is crucial to do that in the same way that you should hold it loosely, but your opinion should be a strong opinion. I think that a lackluster opinion, even if it is embedded within you in the right way, you can't explain it.
I've come to disagree with this.
You've come to disagree with that, sort of having strong opinions.
I think it's totally fine to be a fence sitter a lot of the time, which a lot of people dislike, but I'm a pretty fence-sitter type of guy on most things.
I think you can be a fence. I agree that you can be a fence-sitter on quite a lot of things, and it's important. I don't think you can be a fence-sitter on some strong opinions, though, that you have. Like, I don't believe, let's just say, with some aspects of discipline or some aspects of, say, cryptocurrency in general, I don't know whether you can be successfully, at least in my mind, a fence-sitter there on your belief of Bitcoin. Like a belief, I guess, a fence sitting on belief of Bitcoin of, I can see why it works, but I don't really see that it works. Almost to me is like, I might as well not have heard that opinion. That opinion was useless. It didn't serve any value to anybody. I don't know if it serves me any value to be a fence sitter. It almost strikes me as whether you're one way or the other, you should have a strong opinion on it and have a really good understanding as to why that opinion has been formed. I almost look at it like, if you're a fence sitter, you haven't done enough of the work to put where your opinion should lie.
Oh, no, I disagree with that. Because there's...
So what's like, give me an example of what's a clear example of what you say, I'm a big fence sitter on this. Not that you don't care, because not caring is different. Because at that point, that's what I'm saying. If you don't care, who cares? Be a fence sitter, don't be a fence sitter. Who gives a shit? But something that you care about, that you're a fence sitter.
Well, politics would be one. I care deeply about what happens to this country and the decisions that get made, but I would be the biggest fence sitter in terms of who's got the best ideas on how to actually enact that and things like that.
My struggle with that, what you just said, and I wonder if it's wrong, is I go, no, you don't actually care about politics, but you do care about the ultimate outcome that happens to a person. So if someone was to say, remove the politics, but it was like, oh, hey, there's new policies being enacted and now you're losing 70% of your dividends, you're going to care and you're going to have a strong opinion on whatever way that falls. It was enacted by the politicians, but you still don't have to care about the politicians. It's like, it's this final outcome that came out the way that actually matters to you. I'm just trying to think of another example that comes around with, you know, cryptocurrency or something different to show people. But I think there, it's like, it still doesn't sound like you care about politics. You care about the end outcome of the politics and then having a strong opinion on that.
Yeah. I'm struggling to think of one.
But I would say for sure, I would say for sure, I was trying to struggle to think one of like a real clear example. But I would definitely say that from that question, I lie very clearly in that I think in the things that you care about that are important, you should have a strong opinion. You shouldn't be a fence sitter. And to me, if you don't have that view, it's because you haven't done enough of the work to have that view. And so one clear example, you can look back on this Me and More Lights on the the past musings that we did, where I talked about Bitcoin. I kind of said to you like, oh, yeah, but Cardano is like a better, or ADA is going to be a better thing, or Ethereum's going to be a better one than Bitcoin for peer-to-peer, transactions, right? And I kind of said that in like a strong opinion, right? And then you're like, oh, I don't think that's it. And afterwards, I read the Bitcoin white paper to be like, okay, no, I need to inform myself here to have a strong opinion. I wouldn't find it acceptable for me to be a fence sitter to say, it could be better, it could be worse, not really sure, if I really care about it. Like, for me, at least intrinsically, I felt I need to be able to articulate why I think that.
Yeah,
because
okay.
It's important to me, especially if I'm going to be out there touting to people that you should be sending us money or whatever. Holy hell, I better have a good reasoning as to why I'm saying all this.
This is probably more just differences in personality. So here's one I brought up the other day. I was listening to a handstand podcast and the Handstand Factory, to be exact. And they were just talking about roughly of this guy that they'd heard of, sort of like rumors through the grapevine, so they weren't going to name names, where he would, this podcast was about flagging, so essentially, twisting your body in a, very hard to describe. Imagine doing like a side crunch, but you're upside down.
Handstand.
Yeah. And they were saying there was a coach who basically pushes his students so far that they break their ribs, and then continues for them to says like, okay, now you train even harder on broken ribs, because now is where you can create the space to get your body into that position. Now, I disagree that that's a great way to train, but if someone came up to me and said that, I'd sort of, it'd be fence sitting in a way, being like, look, if you want to do it that way, like, go ahead. Like, I wouldn't even say I have a strong opinion on.
See, I would challenge you on what you're saying then, and correct me if I'm wrong. But when you're saying that you fence sitting on the care of what other people do, which I agree, you can. It's like totally fine. But you have a strong opinion that you disagree that is a good thing. Like, you yourself have a strong opinion on that. Like, if someone said to you, hey, that's what you should be doing, you would have a strong opinion and be like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But you can fence it on, like, you don't give a shit about how other people intake it, and I think it's slightly different.
Yeah, that's a hard one. It's a hard
But
nuance.
I would agree, in, like, that slight, like, difference, I would agree for sure that it's totally okay to be a fence sitter in the sense of don't try to get other people to be on your strong opinion or your view. Like, just because you might have a think, well, and I agree, like, hearing this, I agree. I don't think it's a great way to, like, break your ribs and tell people, like, that's what you should do. If you want to do that, that's fine. Like, my opinion would be, no, I don't want to do that for, like, great reasons that I feel like are applicable to me. But I think if, in that case, like, you said, like, oh, I don't care if I do it or not, like, yeah, I think it'd be good. But, like, to me, I'm just like, that's just might as well not have said anything. Like, that's just valueless. Why even discuss it then at that point?
Well, probably most things I say are valueless then, because I definitely don't express anything pretty strong. Like
the Mere Mortals podcast, folks, where we have no value for you. Value for value, 0 today. No, but I think you still do. I think you still come across, and maybe it's the wording of it, perhaps, but I think sometimes you do share things where it does indicate your value of where you're putting things. And even if it isn't said, it's just the way that you act, or again, come back to some philosophy. It's not so much what you say, but it's definitely what you do that actually matters in the end.
Yeah.
And I think that often, the way that you might train and you might wake up and do your teeth and do all these things, it's showing where your strong opinions are like, where they lie in terms of you care about these things. So if someone was to say, hey, I think not brushing your teeth for a week is like the right way to go, I think you're going to have a strong opinion on it intrinsically because you're like, no, that's not what I think is right to do.
Yeah.
So, but again, you don't give a shit if someone like actually wants to do it or not. You're like, I don't care. I'm relaxed with that way.
This could be true. I'll just finish off my last little bit here, which is an announcement, a notice, which is I'm probably going to stop. You'll probably notice a gradual trend of me speaking less about the cryptocurrencies and just in general, and even I suppose Web3 to a certain extent in general.
On the Meanderings podcast, what about a Value for Value?
I think in general,
just in general.
Just in general, you'll notice like less of my examples, for example, will come up of me talking about, this is something related to the core. If I think about philosophy or ethics nowadays, a lot of it is related to the examples that pop up in my mind will be BTC related, for example. I think some of that's going to be going away, and it's because I've just realized, man, I am spending so many hours exercising.
You do spend a lot of time.
I was doing a bit of research because I was sort of reconfiguring my handstand routine, and I was getting some advice from Brendan, and then I was just wanting to, as I mentioned, I was looking at some flagging videos. I was watching this kind of not really well-known girl, Alicia something, there was a couple of like random videos on YouTube, and she just had some stretching routines, and I could see, she's pretty good. And she used to do circus stuff. She was basically a circus performer. Was going over her stuff and was like, how many hours a day do I train? It was almost the exact same routine as me. Sort of like 4 hours, 1 hour of that being sort of deep stretching and at the start. She'll do it in full blocks. She won't break it up during the day. 30 minutes of warm up, and then probably 2.5 hours of really solid work, and that would be 6 days a week. And I just went, man, it's exactly what I'm doing. The only thing different is I'm actually probably doing a bit more because I'm doing some classes and whatnot at Good Life at the moment. And so, I just came to the realization, okay, I'm training as if I'm training to become a circus athlete. I should probably put a bit more effort into form checks. I should put a bit more effort into research, into perhaps philosophy of training, of more tips and hints and things like that. Yeah. So I'm going to start listening to the Handstand Factory a little bit more. I'm going to be taking more videos of myself whilst training.
So basically, you're going to step back probably on the consumption of some of the cryptocurrency work that you're doing and more into other things. I'm
getting a bit... it's putting me in too much of a what's happening right now mindset. Yeah. And I'm just getting a little... Like, as much as I enjoy learning about what 3AC is doing wrong, how Celsius is fucked up, how those essences of centralized finance are...
If anything, me and more lights, do not leverage your trades, folks.
Yeah.
Do not leverage your trades.
I
know you want to, but do not.
Hold your own keys.
Yep.
And, this is thankfully where that research I'd done previously, because I remember thinking at some point, it'd be nice to earn some yield from Bitcoin, looking at the options, and the options were Celsius or BlockFi or, all of these other different ones. But there was enough good arguments for why you should hold your own keys, so Definitely. That I didn't get wrecked with anything so far.
Correct. Correct. Okay, well, look, in a polar opposite, Juan's about to go hard on it, but what you will find, folks, so here's a bit of news, and I'll share this a few times, I guess, in some of the podcasts that we're doing. I do want to start a specific conversation that I will be having, me personally, about Web3 in general, on a separate, under the Mere Mortals banner. However, as a separate sort of channel, separate channel, as a separate,
not Chiron endorsed
chat.
Anything Juan says in there is
purely Juan endorsed.
It's only the
exactly
the mortal part endorsed, not the mere.
So, but what I was finding as well is that we often talk a lot in Meanderings and musings around some cryptocurrency. And look, I won't go away entirely, but we'll probably reserve to talking about other things that we're really into. I mean, the amount of
the Juan
Andrew
coin,
Huberman,
the announcement of the Juan coin,
the amount of Andrew Huberman / physical chemical reactions in the body that I've been listening to as of late is like incredible. And there's all this stuff about pheromones and testosterone and DHEA and all that I'm been learning into that I just have not talked about at all. And I'm really enjoying.
Yeah.
But I'm going to separate into, and I've talked about this a little bit, into a space probably called like Mere Mortals Web3, where over the next year or two, I basically want to put down some foundational things again, to play my part in getting people onboarded into the space, one, so they can support us back, but two, so I can personally also get myself to almost an eminent being within the space of Web3 of, he's a known entity, knows what he's talking about, and almost looping back to what you were saying, I want to have a strong opinion and be able to have very succinct, straightforward conversations on why NFTs, why Bitcoin, why Web3, why X, Y, Z, why connected to Web2. All of that, I want to be very succinct and very well versed with it. So maybe in a bit of a split here, Karen's going to reduce his view on it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna double in. So there you go. Net will be still the same amount of content.
A year's time, I'll be jacked as shit.
One will be broken ribs and all.
Broken ribs, and one will be the rich. One coin, but physically unhealthy.
Exactly.
Web3 developer.
It'll be a giant transformation. All right, Meandering, we're going to leave it there.
Yep,
I'm going to summarize it as well for you. Again, we've talked about this a lot, but if you want to support us, key ways is boostergramming us, sending us through a boostergram or streaming in any of the podcasting 2.0 platforms. If you want to find out some more, you could go to our Mere Mortals website. You could go to our supporters page. There are some links there that can take you to how you can do that. Go and find the Podcasting 2.0 apps that you want to use. Again, we probably recommend Fountain as a great one, to be honest, to utilize.
Yeah, I think Fountain's, it's in terms of the polish of it as well, I would say Fountain's the most rock solid. And that's an app for your phone if you're wanting on both Android and iOS. If you're wanting one on your desktop, I would probably say Curiocaster was probably the most sort of polished and most up-to-date in terms of people.
You can listen to it on our website, but yes, Curiocaster is probably going to be a better way so you can actually support us. And again, if you want to, there is I guess if you support us enough, and there's quite a few people now that have already landed on that spot for us, but if you go over a certain threshold, we can check on the website, you get a free Mere Mortal shirt. And we've also got some new stuff coming along the line, so obviously be in tune for that. For now, Mere Mortal Lights, we're going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed the philosophy in the park. If you got some value, feel free to send some value back. Leave comments wherever you can. Follow, subscribe, blah, 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 all that sort of bullshit. Brilliant. But for now, Meandering Juan out.
Karen out.
Hoo, hoo, hoo.